The alarm on my console screamed before I even understood what it was screaming about. My name is Vren, and I was the sensor officer aboard the Kaltori scout ship Endless Patience, floating quietly at the edge of a border sector that every map in our archive marked as empty. Nothing there. No colonies, no fleets. Nothing worth a second glance. That was the whole reason we were sent to patrol it. A boring assignment for a boring stretch of space. Until my scanner lit up with a gravity signature so heavy that for a moment I thought my equipment had broken. I ran the diagnostic twice. Both times it came back clean. Something massive had entered the sector, and it had done it without a beacon, without a greeting signal, without anything except pure, silent presence. Captain Isolde stood behind me, arms folded, watching the number climb on my display. "Vren," she said, her voice flat. "Tell me that's a reading error." "It's not," I said. "It's real, and it's big." We had studied humanity before. Every scout crew had. Years ago, our diplomatic ships met their diplomatic ships, and the reports that came back described humans as curious, talkative, and not particularly dangerous. Small ships, simple weapons, a species still finding its feet among the stars. My captain had read the same reports I had. We both expected, at most, a transport vessel or a supply ship. We did not expect what came out of the dark. It appeared on our long-range display first as a shadow, and then, as we crept closer, as an outline that made no sense. It was long, longer than anything in our fleet catalog. Its hull was a dull, matte black that seemed to swallow the light around it instead of reflecting it. Rows of weapon housings lined its sides, uneven, asymmetrical, like they had been added over time rather than designed all at once. Along its spine, dozens of radiator fins glowed a faint red, as if the ship had just finished doing something exhausting and hadn't cooled down yet. "That's not a supply ship," I whispered. "No," Isolde agreed. "It isn't." She ordered a cautious approach, the kind reserved for unknown wreckage or abandoned military hardware. Nobody said the word warship out loud yet. Nobody wanted to be the first to say it. Then it spoke to us. The voice that came through our comm system was calm, and it used our own language, spoken with a strange but understandable accent. It gave us a designation, a string of letters and numbers, followed by a name. When our translator finished processing it, the name came out as something close to, "We already learned this lesson once." Nobody on the bridge said anything for a long moment. "Send a standard greeting," Isolde finally ordered, "and request identification protocol." I typed the request and sent it. At the same time, out of habit, I ran our usual deep sensor sweep, the kind we used on every unknown contact to map its size and structure. It was routine. We had done it 1,000 times on 1,000 unremarkable ships. This ship did not treat it as routine. The instant our sweep touched its hull, a section of its weapon housings rotated toward us and fired. Not all of them, not even most of them. Just a small portion of what I would later learn was called its point defense grid. The same system built to knock down debris and small projectiles automatically, without a person even needing to give the order. That small portion was enough to overload our shields on one entire side of the ship. Sparks burst from a console 2 seats down from mine. Someone shouted. The lights flickered and steadied again. "Status," Isolde barked, her voice sharp now, all calm gone. "Shields down 22% on the starboard arc," I answered, my hands shaking slightly as I read the numbers. Weapons systems on the human ship are still mostly dormant. That wasn't even close to what it's capable of. The realization hit me like the shot had. That hadn't been an attack. That had been a reflex. A reaction so automatic that the ship barely needed to think about it, faster than any of our systems could have responded. "Cease all sensor activity," Isolde ordered instantly. "Open a direct channel. Apologize. Now." I did as she said, my fingers clumsy on the controls. When the channel opened, A voice answered, and it was nothing like what I expected after what had just happened. It sounded tired, almost bored. "Sorry about that," the voice said. A woman's voice, unhurried, like she was talking about the weather rather than a weapon system that had just clipped our shields. "Deep scans tripped the automatic response. Should have warned you before you tried it. We don't get many visitors out here." "You attacked us," Isolde said carefully, choosing her words like she was walking across thin ice. "That wasn't an attack," the voice replied, and I could hear something like mild amusement in it. "If we'd attacked you, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That was point defense. It handles anything that pings us without warning, doesn't ask permission first. I'll shut off automatic response for the rest of this conversation, if that helps." I stared at my screen, running the numbers again, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. 22% of our shields, gone, from a system the woman on the other end was describing as something that didn't need permission to fire. "May I ask," Isolde said, her voice tight, "what kind of vessel we are speaking with?" "Reclamation class," the woman answered simply. "Built a while back, during a period when we were having some disagreements among ourselves. Colonies that didn't want to stay part of the same government anymore. Ships like this one were built to convince them otherwise." "Convince them?" I repeated quietly, mostly to myself. "After things settled down, decommissioning ships like this costs more than just keeping them running," she continued, her tone still light, almost cheerful. "So a lot of us got reassigned to border patrol instead. Quiet duty. Not much happens out here. Crew still runs drills every day though. Habit, I suppose. Keeps everyone sharp." I looked at Isolde. She looked back at me, and I saw in her face the same thing I felt building in my chest, a cold, spreading understanding that we were badly, dangerously wrong about something important. "How many of these ships does your people have?" Isolde asked. I could hear her trying to keep the question casual and failing. There was a pause on the other end, just long enough to feel deliberate. "That's not really something I'm supposed to share with a first contact," the woman said. "Sorry, standard policy." While she spoke, I pulled up every file we had on humanity, scrolling through them as fast as I could. Every report, every assessment, every observation from our diplomatic ships. All of it described friendly, curious, technologically simple people. Small ships, modest weapons, a species we had judged collectively as no threat worth worrying about. And then I understood. Those reports were accurate. They just weren't complete. The ships that met us for diplomacy were exactly what they seemed to be, simple and unthreatening, because that was their job. They were sent out to greet, not to warn. Nobody had sent us anything like this before, because nothing like this had ever needed to come out. This ship wasn't part of that fleet. This was something else entirely, something humanity apparently considered unremarkable enough to leave sitting quietly on a border nobody expected trouble from. Not their best, not their newest. Just an old ship with a tired crew, doing what our diplomatic reports called low-threat duty. "Vren," Isolde said quietly, not looking away from the display, "give me a full retreat course. Slow and steady, no sudden movements." I typed the course before she finished the sentence. "We should be going," Isolde said into the comm, her voice carefully even. "Thank you for your patience. We meant no disrespect with the scan." "None taken," the woman replied easily. "Wasn't personal. Systems just don't know the difference between curious and careless. Safe travels out there. It's a long way back to anywhere from this sector." The channel closed. On our display, the massive black shape did not turn to follow us. It did not power up any additional systems. It simply sat there, drifting exactly where it had been before we arrived, radiators still glowing that same dull red, as if the entire encounter had already slipped from its notice. We pulled back at a careful, unhurried pace, nobody on the bridge speaking, until the ship had shrunk to a dot on our rear sensors, and finally vanished from view completely. Only then did anyone breathe normally again. Isolde turned to me. "Compile everything," she said. "Every reading, every word of that conversation. Command needs to see this immediately." I spent the return journey writing the report, and I found myself struggling over the final line more than any other part of it. I wanted it to capture what I had actually understood out there, not just the numbers and the shield percentages, but the feeling underneath them. In the end, I wrote this. We did not encounter humanity's strength today. We encountered a ship they consider ordinary enough to forget about. If a forgotten patrol vessel can do what we witnessed without even trying, then everything we assumed about this species needs to be reconsidered, starting now, and starting carefully. I sent the report, leaned back in my chair, and looked out at the stars, wondering how many more ships like that one were sitting quietly out there, waiting, patient and unremarkable, for someone to make the same mistake we almost made.